Um, cool. So, good evening, everyone. Look, so this is a series this is the inaugural recording, I guess, or call for the series. It's called Life After the Leap. And I wanted to introduce this because, look, we're talking, I want to be able to address kind of all stages that we have, whether we're in that decision-making phase to actually going through the what I call the leaping and actually doing the work that we need to make changes, as well as then just we've arrived, and then what happens after we've arrived, right? So like there's these several stages that we have in that space, and I just wanted to be able to open this call, and it's not just me like talking, it's actually well and truly sustained dialogue that I'd like to have with you to understand really where along your journey you are. It seems like you said in this space we're talking about life after, but in that journey of like working on your portfolio or applying for jobs or potentially having a imposter syndrome. How's that? Is there? Yeah, the feedback.
I'm gonna leave it. I don't know.
No, it's not you. But you know what? It's good. Look, this is an open dialogue. This is a chat, so you're not having to be on mute because we're gonna have a chat. But there is someone who has some noise behind them. And cool. Anyway, life goes on. So no, just come off mute. It's fine.
Okay, I was like, there's no other sound in my apartment.
Yeah, exactly.
I have fan on, but I turned it off, so I don't know.
No worries. We'll power through because that's what we do. So, so yeah, like I just wanted to hear more about either what questions you have in, like I said, your potentially about, like I said, life after you've done with your courses, and like I said, if it has anything to do with portfolios, interviews, getting jobs, more about the day-to-day, then by all means ask them or tell us where you are in that space. So who would like to start?
I can start.
Cool.
Yeah, so it's nice being in a call where I know everyone because I've been all of you separately, so this is cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm at this stage where I'm still doing coursework and mentally.
Hold on one second. I'm gonna just ask us to all mute while you're talking. How about that? Okay.
Okay. Oh yeah, it's so quiet now. So I'm at the stage where I am still taking classes, and I've been playing around with actually designing stuff. I come from an education background, and I have no design experience really outside of the stuff that I've made in like Canva, and so it's really new for me to think in this kind of way. And while I'm very excited, I'm also a little bit intimidated, seeing all of the great work that everyone's putting out and seeing all of these cool portfolios and seeing all this cool stuff that everyone's doing. And I'm like, man, will I ever do that one day? And it feels attainable, but then I also, just kind of get into my own head. And I'm used to knowing how to do my job and knowing how to do things. And I've been in the same field for so long that it's a little scary to do something else. But it's so inspiring that everyone in the field is so willing to share their insight and their information and around the world. And so that's been really encouraging. So as everyone on the call knows, I at some point plan on also moving overseas again. I used to live in Japan. And so for me, I would like to stay in the area for another year or so while I figure things out, but I would like to eventually transition overseas. So it's a lot of mental change for me, but I feel very ready for it, especially as things continue to go downhill here. I feel like there's just, I'm seeing a lot of signs, and I'm just feeling a lot of energy that's sort of pushing me into the UX space. And I've been networking with so many amazing people over the last few weeks. And so, yeah, so I'm really just at the point of trying to get myself to get past this mental hurdle of feeling like I'll never be able to produce anything as cool as what other people are doing, and that eventually I'll be able to be on the same level as everyone else or better.
Cool. Yeah, so I'm just gonna, how about this? I'm gonna take notes and let everyone have their moment first. And then we'll come back around, because then it may collectively do that. So who's, Tiffany, you jumped off of mute, so you're gonna be next.
No, I was gonna say that I completely agree with that. I'm like brand new. Like the more I know, the more I'm learning about UX, I feel like the more I know that I don't know. But it's like, it's exciting because it just all seems like it's just such a like just such a fun process. Also very intimidating too, because I don't know why, but like I've signed up for like a million groups. So everyone in there, I was always posting it, like all the cool designs and learning about the design process. And it's like, on one hand, it's like this, like everything seems very, it seems like, attainable, or like I could obviously learn it, but just having actual practice in the design process and actual examples of my work, and one, like just thinking about being at that place one day is a little bit scary. And with everything going on, just wondering how much experience I could actually get, how the field will look like I know that obviously within the technology space it's going to be growing, it's kind of inevitable, but at the same time, from an economic standpoint, just kind of like how everything will look in that regard, like how likely people will be to, have networking events where they're sharing, as many anymore. I don't really see many where I feel like there were, like when I was looking on like Meetup group and other things, just, opportunities just to learn from like senior designers. So that's an area of concern for me, but I'm also just really excited just to kind of learn more and gain more skills. I feel like I'm blabbering, but yeah, that's where I am at. So I was really excited when Sinead added me to this group, because I was like, oh, this is really cool. I'd love to, be a part of the group, learn from other people, share what I can share, obviously, where I can. But yeah, happy to be here.
Awesome, great. Well, we can address all of those, because they're yeah, we can address all those. Cool. So then, Amanda, if you want to.
Yeah, so I think it might be my computer fan making the noise. I'm not sure. Oh,
Power
you're
through.
muted. You were muted, so I couldn't understand what you were saying.
Power through.
So similarly, I'm still working on the course that I was doing through Udacity, and just trying to learn other things. The struggle I'm trying to think of is how to know when you know enough info to apply for jobs. And again, just like getting projects that I feel like are worthy to showcase in the portfolio. But otherwise, it's exciting learning new things, talking to new people. Like everybody in this industry is very friendly and willing to give advice and help.
Cool. So I can like respond to all of these things personally, and so in which case, but like I said, I don't want it to just be me talking like at you. So I will offer some words for more dialogue. So let's see. Well, and I'll just write down the other one in terms of when's enough. When is it enough in terms of information to then go to practice? Okay. So feeling comfortable about your designs and like where you are in that design space. Look, it sounds like really daunting to say that like you always feel like your designs can be better, and that you like you just reach a point, and I really don't know where that point is. I'm going to be honest with you, like where it just starts to being like, this is the most that I feel I can do with the information and time that I have. and so like this is before you actually start to put it out to people and then get feedback. So your first couple of versions of a design are not going to be amazing, nor are they supposed to be amazing, because this is not like a one and done kind of thing with design. It is a back and forth. You might have thought you've created something that is visually amazing, however, functionally people are struggling to get through it. Or, you know, like there is something that you thought you wrote amazing copy for, and still people have questions, you know. And so I would say, like, there's always this so I would say get comfortable sooner rather than later with the fact that your first couple of versions of a design for anything that you're working on is not going to be great. Design is a very different industry than like your like widget here goes into like square here. Yeah, I mean, it's just such an evolving thing. So just as I think I might have told you earlier, that design is not a space for egos. It's also not a space for feeling like you need to have it perfect. So, and just being open to that feedback. So you will reach a point, and it will happen organically, where you're just like, yep, this is, like I said, what I can produce for the time and the current talent that I have. You're constantly going to be learning about different things of what you can do in the design space. So you will just continue to evolve, just like you may continue to learn like a new fact that you can teach your students, or a new, you know, perspective that you can use. And so just like at some point you reached, you know, like this confidence that you can be in front of the classroom and what you have to say is important and you're the expert in that space, that happened for you in your industry prior, and it will happen in design. I don't know if that really helps that first point. So if you want to jump in.
Question to ask off of that.
Yeah.
You brought up a good point about, like, you know, you thought you wrote good copy, or like there's so many different aspects of like the UX design. Like when you're building your portfolio, like you're obviously going to have one area that you excel at more than others. I know like you're kind of new to the industry too, but do you think that people, when they look at people's portfolios, they're looking for overall amazingness? Because like you're the only one usually working on the projects and portfolio, at least I feel like at the entry level. Or are they kind of looking at the areas where you're going to excel? Like they're not like overall, they're like, you know, picking out like, oh, they're really good at this part of UX.
Yeah, so look, I'd say that it really depends on what that company is looking for, because like they actually also use the terms very interchangeably in terms of designer and researcher and blah, blah, blah. Like it's just one whole like word that is used to encompass like UX design. And so as well as there might be a team of designers, and they acknowledge that some of those designers have greater strengths than in some areas versus others. So collectively as a team, you complete what's needed in like the design process. So look, like I said, I would say focus on what you want to present for what your interest is in the industry. So if you're really big on research, then your portfolios are probably going to be much more about what your process was like to help validate and to research, gain insights, do interviews, surveys, contextual inquiries, you know, and that kind of stuff. And you're going to spend more time in that space. And then at the end, it's going to be like, and this is what I produced, right? Whereas someone, if you're much more visually inclined and that's the space that you want to get more in, then you're very much highly just summarizing what you did along in that research process so that you can show the validity of how you arrived there. But you have a lot more images and screen flows and interaction potentially that you have embedded in your website or in your portfolio. So I'd say, because people are going to pick up on that and then decide whether they need that the piece of the skill set that you're showing that you're strong at in their group. Because so if you want to be like this all around unicorn, what we would consider a unicorn and industry quite literally, because you can do very strongly end to end, then by all means present that. But I would start it from the perspective of where do you want to be? Like what role along the design process do you want to play? And you'll see that you'll be asked that in interviews pretty much as a stock standard question. Like, what part of the process do you enjoy most? Guarantee you everyone will ask you that, because there's such a spectrum of roles that you can have in the overall umbrella of UX design. Does that help?
Yeah, and I mean, to that point, I feel like like there are a lot of YouTube videos like AJ and Smart. I don't know what the other ones are that I've seen. I think it's The Future. A lot of them like talk about their interview process, which I've found really helpful in thinking about like what the next step looks like. But a lot of them are doing like portfolio reviews and stuff, and then it's kind of like it just like further emphasizes what you're saying, in that you can it seems like you could really specialize in so many different areas of UX, and not a lot of companies are requiring you to like know everything about the whole process, which is kind of comforting. So in a way, it brings me comfort that I can probably start out in like a UX generalist type of role, and then find what I feel might be most interesting. I kind of have a sense of what I already think is most interesting, but it's helpful to watch these videos and see them critiquing portfolios and walking through an interview process, like a design interview, because then it kind of makes me think back like to how regular interviews are, and just being, like you're entering a job, you're not going to know all 10 things, all 10 aspects that they're looking for. Maybe you know 6 of them really well, but you're open to learning like 3 out of the 10. So, things like that. And I think that it's like similar to a lot of other industries. So that brings me a lot of comfort. So I don't know, I just thought I'd put it out there. So like, if you haven't already, I've just been wasting too many hours on watching those kinds of videos and like seeing how hiring managers are critiquing people in the industry. That's been kind of cool. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know if does that.
yeah, no, totally. So you'll probably hear a lot of the terminology T-shape, that people
Yeah.
saying that, and yeah, they say it probably more in UX design than I have heard like in any other industry. But basically, so if you imagine a T, you have your top here and your leg here, and so what they're saying is that like of having a broad enough understanding of the process, but going deep in some areas, right? So that there might be, overall you understand the UX process, but like I said, you're really strong in copywriting, but you're not as strong in visual, and so if you hear that term quite a bit there, it's like I said, because it's such a broad industry, they're trying to cover that explanation of what it's like to be broad, but also have components that are deep. And like I said, I think that there's probably, I mentioned this maybe in the call prior, that there was like a specialization maybe more to begin with, in that there were like maybe just UX writers and just UX researchers and just visual designers and just UX designers. And there is probably a shift, and I think that it depends where you are regionally. I would put that as a caveat as to how much of an expectation there is for a bit of that unicorn to be able to do that end-to-end process. And then, so, like you said, where I am right now in Brisbane, that's a greater expectation. When you are in markets that are more advanced markets, meaning that people have been in the industry for longer, that industry has been thriving for longer in UX, you will see a lot of more specialized roles, because there's a greater need for people to dig deep and be those specialists. So for instance, in California, you might see greater roles where there are a lot of like very specific, drilled down roles for people to have. And there may be a broadening of that, or rather going back to some kind of specificity in terms of as our technologies evolve. So you will maybe find people who are focused only in voice, and people who are focused really on that high animation, and people who are really focused on making things more accessible. So it'll be interesting to see how the industry flips back into that space. But I do think that regionally, and it depends on how developed and how long people have been thriving, I guess, in the UX industry, as to how much of an expectation there is for you to be more broad versus more deep. I hope that makes sense. Cool. So I am aware of time, and there are a couple more that I definitely want to be able to hit up here in terms of questions. In terms of like actual practice and experience, in terms and project worthy, portfolio worthy projects, I'm going to combine both of those questions, because so really, I wouldn't say that to put a much emphasis at all really as to what projects are concepts versus which ones you actually got to work with clients one-to-one or on for the purposes of your portfolio. The reason I say that is that if you didn't put the word concept on there, they wouldn't really know whether this was something you did like on your own and you made up a problem, or you're solving a problem that the world has. That's ultimately what matters, and what your process was like to get there. So I wouldn't stress too much about your ability to get like these real projects, and by real I mean actually working with some clients. Yes, there's another the dynamic of working with a client, but if pick a friend, they can be your client. You solve a problem for someone that and you have a client, right? So you actually do surveys and interviews, you have interaction with real people. So just because you're not getting like paid for that doesn't mean that that's not real experience, and that you're not trying to solve a real issue regardless of who initiated that issue. So I would not say get hung up on was that for a paid client, was that for someone, and like I said, if you feel you need to do it for someone, pick a friend. Ask me what my problems are and I'll tell you, right? and go design something and fix it for me, and validate if it's someone else's issue, right? We don't design for one person. So we have to design for something that feels accessible for many. So go pick a friend. In terms of making it portfolio worthy, this is where you get that practice. So I think in the spreadsheet that's in the group about UX design resources, there's one that's a tab that's called challenges, and it has daily UI challenges. So it's like 100 days of challenges, basically, where that morning one arrives and it's like, hey, now you have to design a new like interface for an airline as to like for the check-in process. So it's one screen that you have to do, and you literally have to create something, in 24 hours. You're not submitting it. It's just a practice that you have. And you can look at kind of things like Behance and Dribbble to be able to find inspiration of it. But I'd say, in terms of also this comparing it to others, that it's like this beauty and a curse, in that you do get a lot of inspiration by looking at how people tackled another issue before. So it's not to say that you have to come up immediately with something that's brand new, because when you do something that's brand new, that can go one or two ways. One, people just really truly don't understand it, can't get through it because it doesn't look like anything that they have touched or done before. And so they're going to struggle to understand your new interface. or they're going to be absolutely delighted because your new interface actually solves an issue that the other ones didn't even bother. So you're always going to run the risk, and that's just like when you open a new company, you're suggested to find some competitors at least, because that already helps to validate that your business idea is something that people want. So there's definitely, even in my day job, definitely do look to see, get some inspiration and look to see maybe how others are attacking something, because you already know that at least people are getting comfortable with that interface. And so it wouldn't be as much of a struggle to be able to get them comfortable to what you're trying to present. Does that make sense? Cool. What will the field, so I'll go back to the networking ones first, because then that's more easy to answer than the economic one. So look, yeah, I would say there's been less networking events that have happened in the immediate term for a UX space. However, I'm starting to see more and more come back virtually. So that's a good thing. So even there's one that I went to monthly, and after their last one in February, it's been like kind of crickets. And then they had one last week, and then another one coming up next week. And the thing is, they wouldn't have had them that often, actually, had this been in person. They wouldn't have had them only 2 weeks between. But since there's so much less physical setup to make that happen, and it's literally, they put a link up and meet up, and people just show up because they want to have some kind of interaction. So I would say that as we are progressing in this, and people are really have truly got their heads around the fact that this is not something that we're going to, like, tomorrow we're going to emerge from, I think you'll start to see more networking events come online. So stay tuned for that. That's what I'm starting to see in Australia, at least. And I imagine that would be the case because designers like human connection, so and thrive off of that. So I don't think you'll find it to be silent much longer. Economics of life. And sorry, I'm barreling through these because we do have a time limit. And I don't want us to just end without at least trying to get through your questions. But do let me know if other ones are coming up for you, because then I can pause. We can address those too, but I at least want to, try to address your earlier ones. Is that cool? Awesome.
Yeah. I mean, you don't even necessarily have to answer the question about like the economic thing. I think that was just more like me expressing my concern.
Yeah.
I mean, I think ultimately, I mean, it's only going to get better at some point. I'm just kind of like, it's just a concern of mine, when I think about, what point is it and what I think about my own personal goals, but it's more of like a selfish, like I would like to make a transition within X amount of time. So I'm kind of thinking about where like the economy is going to be, but like, it's not like not like something I think that we could necessarily, or you should answer. I don't think any of us really know in terms of the global economy.
Look, I do want to shed some light on it because I was in this conversation literally yesterday morning with people in the hotel general managers and property managers. And they were really stressing two things, which I thought were really interesting. And so is that one, they're very much interested in what the customer is going to expect and want and need to feel safe and secure and comfortable to come back. And what their experience, what they want out of their, their cleanliness the factor, or their ability to be shielded, in some way and feel like they're not going to catch something. And there being a more personalized and customized experience to help with efficiency as well, and letting people pre-order things or pre-book things and in ways that they may not have thought to before, have things delivered to the room. And so yes, they were interested in, one, understanding the customer's voice, two, actually acting on that to make it more personalized and customized, and three, they were looking at their future plans for their hotels and deciding, and resorts, and deciding what they may need to change for that future. So in terms of the flow of how people move through it, in terms of the layout of how much space people have and how much outdoor space that there is. And so in that instance, they're very much concerned about changing what they thought was on paper, and to address what life was like beforehand, to look at what they need to be aware of for a property that they have coming up in 4 years, for instance, because they recognize that some of the things that we've been putting in as measures for COVID-19 are things that actually need to maintain throughout afterwards. Like they're just not going to go back. So in that way, that like made my ears perk as a UX designer, because I'm like, wow, they're going to need help to do that, right? And I'm just giving this example in one industry. There are going to be many other industries that are going to try to have to figure out what is there, that are going to be more interested in that customer voice, what makes them comfortable, and what they expect, and how this needs to change for the future. And they're going to need help to do that. And you're going to be seeing that a lot more in a service space, in ways that you may not have seen that before. And as well as digital. So a lot of these, they were also mentioning that they're much more open to digital technologies of contactless, check-ins and key cards that are, and contactless, access to your room. So there's going to be a ramp up in technology that is in the digital space as well, to service the service industry. So I think, if anything, as we come out of this, we're going to actually see even more opportunity from industries that maybe didn't even know they needed a UX designer. And as they are more and more interested in what that customer voice is, they're going to be more and more open to that. So that's my take on it, as well as I don't think we're going to get any slower in what the trajectories already were in terms of artificial intelligence, in terms of voice, voice activation and animation. I don't think we're going to slow down in any of those spaces, which were already trends that we were heading towards prior to COVID-19.
Yes, I was so excited to potentially one day maybe work in an industry that does AR or like a voice integrated technology. I know absolutely nothing about anything that has to do with it, but I think it would just be really cool to just be near like the people that think about this kind of stuff. I don't know.
Yeah. So the good thing is that one, Zoom is not screaming at us for this to be done in 4 minutes, so we can continue on if you're able to. Two, an industry that I found really interesting, two industries that I found really interesting in terms of AR in particular that you brought up, bringing up as to how that could apply. One, the travel industry, because especially as people it's going to be a while before they can travel. There's already kind of these headsets that you can put on and make you feel like you're somewhere, and get a tour and feel of a place before you actually go there. So it would be interesting to see if there's a ramp up in that to help get people more excited about either their local area, like their local state, to help at least drive local tourism and then eventually international tourism. So that technology was already there, but the application of it, I think, would be really a lot interesting to see if that expands. The real estate industry as well. So I actually got to put on, literally put on a headset less than a year ago for this startup company who was, they're trying to help real estate agents sell really high-end apartments or condos. And so they would have people who are looking to buy that want to touch and feel actually put this on and be able to go around not only their own unit, but also upstairs and see what the view would be like from the roof, and what the lobby looks like. They were actually able to choose what their finishes would be, so they could just tap and choose like a light marble or wood or whatever, by using this. So they were able to choose what they wanted their finishes to be. It was awesome, right? So it's also already kind of being used in construction in less extensive ways right now to actually do layout and for framing, because they need to, it's the accuracy that you can get from geolocation to be able to pinpoint where it is that you need to put that stud, right? So there are, that's just two examples, right, of industries where there was already traction in that space. And that would be really interesting to see how we go forward. Voice, something else that I thought was really interesting, is about navigation for people who can't see, and about how they can get around. It was this clip how they were put on like goggles for some to make someone feel as if they, you know, would feel like if they were blind or are not able to see as well, and visually impaired. That's the word I was looking for. And they were testing this voice app that could give them direction to get through the London Tube from outside. You know, like once you got in the area, it was able to pick up that you were in that area, and you know, you pretty much figure out where you wanted to go, and it would navigate you through the station down to the platform that you needed. So those are just some examples that I have been exposed to. Also AR, back into construction. So Sydney Trains, Sydney is expanding their train system, and they're tapped this company here in Brisbane to actually do studies with people where they actually have, you know, AR kind of VR goggles on, and walk them through what the train station experience would be like, and get their opinions of like, oh, they came down the escalator, they don't know, like, you know, which direction to go in, or they've come off the elevator or lift, however you want to say, and they're trying to figure out, like, you know, where the bathroom is, right? And so they made changes to what the layout was going to be based off of these studies beforehand, for people who were able to walk through. So let's see, those two are industries that I picked because I'm closest to them in terms of my awareness of how they're being used, how that technology is being used in those spaces. But I presume that there are many other, you know, applications. So that's just some examples. So hopefully the future is bright. So hopefully you're not. Hopefully that gives you something to go on. Does that help?
Yeah. I mean, it's I definitely do think that there's a lot. It's only up when it comes to technology. You know, there's so much more to do. I think so many more opportunities for technological growth.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see what's going to happen, especially now. You know, I'm sure people are being forced to be innovative in ways they've never had to do before. You know, so just curious to see kind of what opportunities that creates. You know, they always say, like, well, I always tell like my own students that, like, don't pigeonhole yourself into a particular industry, because 5 years from now the job titles are going to exist or don't exist yet, you know. So that's kind of exciting too, you know. Who knows?
Yeah. So what's interesting about UX design is that in itself is not, I mean, yes, it's an industry, but it's an industry that is of service to other industries. So in that way, we've picked one of the best ones to be in, just like technology is of service for other industries. So the need for it will always be there. Exactly what that need looks like in more specific terms will change, but that's because we work on the human experience. So as the human experience also evolves and is dynamic, we'll also have a job. You know? So we have a great client, humans, and we have an industry, like I said, that is very much needed by other industries. Whether they can actually pinpoint the title that, yes, I need a UX designer, is still, you know, they're trying to holistically figure out. It's a relatively new industry, but the task at hand of what needs to be done in terms of extracting, analyzing, and designing with humans, that's not going to change. But what its title might be, you're absolutely right, may change, but what needs to happen won't. It's my humble opinion. I do want to get to when enough is enough in terms of practicing to just doing. So, or feeling comfortable that, either you've done enough research, you've done enough courses, let's go. And so I think like literally one boot camp is enough. I don't think that, so one intense, either 3 months or 6 months or however it is, but just one of them is enough. I'll say that, to, like you said, you're going to, throughout your coursework and even like right afterwards, are going to be building your portfolio in real time. So whether that is something you're doing directly through your coursework or something you're doing through your daily UI challenges, you're going to have that opportunity to constantly iterate and work on it. And I will say, let me drop that, iterate. Your portfolio is never finished. You're always adding things to it, or dropping back and being like, oh, since I've learned something new, I want to revamp a design I've already done that's in my portfolio and jazz it up to now add some motion that I didn't know how to do, 3 months ago when I first put that in my portfolio. And it's also okay to like show what those stages were. So you're like, hey, this is this portfolio, this particular project, this is it at month, especially if it's the visual design stuff. Like this is it at, like when I first did it, and now here's the version that I, did on it 3 months later, and here's a 6 months. So people can actually see that there was progression as well. So that's also an option. So, and like, even something that I personally struggle with is like, oh, do I want to do a freelance or do I want to work for someone? And I think that part of what I chose to do as not a freelance is because I felt like I wanted to be in that circle of other designers to get feedback from. But I will say that other people, like, that was personal. There are definitely people that were coming up to me wanting me to work on projects. And there was a church that was like, we just need somebody, So I would start with, someone who's like is there a service or a store or a business in your area that you enjoy, and you've looked at their website and it looks like crap, or you see something about the layout of how they're offering their service, and you're like, man, I wish they would do this because you're a customer, right? Like, and it's like there are opportunities that are there to start practicing with people that are either, like local to you, that are of service or a business or a product that, you have some access to them to see, like, how is it that you can potentially work for them or do something for them. Or even if you're potentially like, hey, I'm a patron, and you go and you don't even have to engage with them first. You go and do something that could help them. You redesign, you said, your version of what their website or your version of their app or your version of like how their store would be laid out or your version of like, what other service that you would have loved for them to have as a customer. And then you say, hey, then you're going to approach them. Hey, I've just been working on some own concepts for my own portfolio. Just, if you're open to letting me share them with you, then yeah, great. You don't give away all like the kit and the caboodle and like, but, show them some examples of that. And then it's like, well, look, if you'd like to hire me for that, or let me work on this thing for you, either you can choose whether that's for experience or if you want to just get some dollars, in that way. That's also like a way to approach it, whereby you're getting some experience if you do want kind of this real client experience, and you already have you being a patron or this something being local, you already have experience of it as a customer as well, and have that insight too. So the practice will always, like, you'll still be practicing even in your job because you're always going to try new things and learn from your other designers. But there's also an opportunity because people just need our service, whether, like I said, whether they know that the title is UX designer that they need, they, want to connect with they want to know their customers better so that they can connect with them better and potentially spend less on marketing. Because if you already have a product or service that speaks to your customer, you don't have to spend as much time putting the dollars out to try to convince them they're wise. So yeah, so I'd say if on your LinkedIn, you don't have to put aspiring UX designer or UI designer. You don't have to put junior UX designer. You're just a designer. You're a UX UI designer. Right. So because also a lot of so I just wanted to address that because I see that I haven't seen your particular LinkedIn profiles, but I'm seeing that on people's profiles that I'm looking for opportunities. I'm just a junior. I'm just like, don't label yourself that. You're a designer. Because for some people, you're going to be really advanced, and for others, yes, you are going to be more junior. You like, don't put that label on yourself. So yeah, those are my words in that space.
I have like one more question to add to that, kind of in the like what's enough. When it comes to coding, because I was looking at a lot of job descriptions, and they don't necessarily ask you to be like fluent in HTML or CSS, but they're kind of like a basic knowledge. Do you know any coding or have any sort of idea like what that basic level might be considered?
So I took one like literally boot camp class, like not even a full boot camp, just one class at General Assembly for coding, and realized that after that 8 hours, I don't ever want to do this again. But what what was helpful about it, and like I said, that was just 8 hours with some lunch breaks. What was helpful about it was that when you say basic, is that you can understand that one, there's CSS in terms of where the colors and the styling and whatever it lives. There's HTML, there's JavaScript. So like basic language in terms of what those things are is helpful. There are like basically like you can learn in there what is it that if you did want to like change a color, for instance, and you can even do this actually on Google, sorry, not Google, Inspector tools. You can literally open up any website, you can see what their code is and like change the color of something locally on your computer, and it does not affect Google's whatever that actual company's website, but you can play around with different things there, and it's not even, it's like, so I think one is an awareness of terminology as a basic thing, and two, I think they say that more because of the interaction that you have with developers. So not that you're actually going to be the one coding per se, but there are certain things that are helpful to understand when you have, because your designs, if they're digital ones on the website or app, eventually have to be given to a developer. So that if you are able to understand that when you are it's annotating your designs so that people can actually do stuff with them afterwards, or being aware that there's like spatially something won't work, or that there may be a technical like limitation, feasibility of what's able to be developed from your design. I don't like any for people who are well and truly looking for someone who can do UX and code. I think I would personally stay away from those roles, only because I think that they don't understand the UX design well. And when you have employers that don't understand it well, their expectations are phenomenal. Is that the word we want to use? They're not really grounded in the fact that I don't think they understand the industry well. And that's actually going to make your job really, really difficult, because you're going to constantly have to prove like where and draw a line. And I would say I would not go for roles that have those as requirements to actually code. There's a difference between have a basic understanding of and do the coding. So yeah, I would say like they're just trying to do some kind of catch-all thing, and either they don't have enough money to do, someone who can pay for someone who codes as well as someone who does UX design. If they're particularly a startup, they might have you running around in circles unnecessarily and unfocused in your job, and that will cause you frustration. So I would, ask if you do get an opportunity to talk to them, I would ask, like what percentage of time are you actually anticipating, and at what skill level are you anticipating someone to actually be able to code? If you're able to have a question, ask that as a question. I think that it's helpful to have some basic knowledge about, like I said, if you wanted to change a color or a font, and that's really more of in your CSS, or do like I've built my own in WordPress, right? I'm able to manipulate the themes by being like, oh, I want this to now be a link. And so it's a RF, and colon and whatever. So like those are very basic commands to be able to put in. And like I said, I spent 8 hours one day. So I don't think you necessarily need to full on take a course per se, but there are some, I said some terminology, some basic commands that I think are useful. And that's more for your communication with your developer and small tweaks that you may want to make to your own stuff, like your website for your portfolio. So cool. Any other questions before we wrap up? Are you feeling more comfortable in your UX skin? Cool.
No, thank you for sharing, and it's helpful to have conversations like this. Even it's like, when you're like new at something, I feel like it can be so scary to like, I feel like there's a lot of like second guessing, and you're like, wait, should I be doing this? And you're like in this constant cycle of like not really talking yourself out of it, but you're like, wait, is this the right way? And then you want like the confirmation, and you want the like reassurance and like the reminder that like, okay, this is what it's like. I don't know. So it's helpful too for that purpose. But thank you.
Yeah. Awesome. Welcome. And look, there is such a constant feedback loop that is required in design. So you won't actually know how you're doing in it until you ask someone, like, does this make sense to you? Can you get through this? How does this look to you? And actually probe them for real words, not like, oh, it kind of feels a little funny. What does that mean? Like, so I would say become more proactive in asking for feedback, because that is well and truly the only way you're going to know if what you're designing is landing on someone well. And not necessarily, there's a way that you intend for something to land on someone, but there's also like more or less removing yourself from it and say like, did it answer their question? Like, does this allow, does what I've designed or what I've researched allow someone to be able to do whatever task they were trying to do more easily, more seamlessly? So that's always the like ultimate question. Are they enjoying that experience? Are they getting through that experience? Is it solving their issue? And that matters so much more than like how visually pleasing you think something is. Is it functional? So cool. Awesome, ladies. Well, then I am going to let you live the rest of your evenings if there's nothing else. And like I said, we'll continue to have more chats. There's going to be another life after the leap. I'm trying to line up this a woman who's moved countries, changed careers, has raised a family abroad. So I'm seeing if we can try to bring her on for next month, because I would like to maintain a balance between, you're most welcome, Amanda. Thank you for being here too. Just keep a balance between career related stuff and travel related stuff, because I know there are a lot of people in the group mostly who are wanting to do a career change or a job change because they feel that they want to do that first before they leap into something abroad. So I definitely want to have more of those sessions as well to try to help people understand also that they don't have to have it all figured out career-wise before they go to another locale. So more about that later. So anyway, enjoy the rest of your evening. I'm so grateful that you guys you ladies were here as well, and gave great energy and great questions, and look forward to being able to continue to help you through your journey.
Thank you.
Cool.
Enjoy your day.
Thank
Since
you.
it's the beginning over there.
It is. It's about 8 a.m., 8:30. So let's go. It's Friday over here already.
Yeah, I'm jealous.
Don't be, it's coming. I'm living the future for you.
Yeah,
Okay.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Take care. Bye.
Bye.